What's going on, everybody? Happy Monday. Welcome into the pod at the Palace. Curtis Wilkerson here with you from Natty State Sports Studios in downtown Fayetteville. Yeah, I know, right? Flying solo today. It feels a little bit weird, I'm not going to lie. Not having my right-hand man, Scotty Bordelon, here with me. Can confirm that he is not dead. He has not quit or been fired. He's just playing Super Dad today. Got some stuff going on, so the show must go on. I'm going to do my best to try to bring my A game, so bear with me, and I will be back right with the world tomorrow. Whew. No Easter surprise for the Hoop Hogs this year, unfortunately. You know, I was on alert for it all weekend just in case something happened. I mean, I had a banger of an edit with Eric Musselman's face photoshopped like onto a child opening up an Easter egg that revealed a new Razorback commit out of the portal. It was going to be awesome, man. I was really looking forward to putting it out there. Maybe next year. We'll see what happens. Also, welcome to Arkansas's last stand of coaching carousel season. Right? I hate this. I really do. It drives me nuts. I'm ready for it to be over, and it almost is here. The USC job is officially open now with Andy Enfield off to SMU. Knew that was going to happen. They were waiting on a buyout to drop before they made it official on this morning, Monday. So it happened. And listen, you're going to hear about Eric Musselman's name being mentioned with this job. You just are. So don't be surprised when that happens. It's coming. Here's what I can tell you right now. Was told over the weekend by someone on the Razorback staff that they've turned the page on the weirdness from Hunter Yurichek's video and all the stuff that went on last week, and that they're fully focused on the roster rebuild here at Arkansas. So somebody in the building told me. I have no reason to doubt that that's the case. I mean, especially with the way that they've been recruiting, had several more Zooms with transfers over the course of the weekend. Obviously, they got the commitment on Friday from Josh Cohen. And really, like, every single time that the smoke has gotten super thick with one of these job rumor things here the last several weeks, like what I've heard from inside the building has wound up being true. So you feel good about that. But also have plenty of irons in the fire, right? Elsewhere. Just keep an eye on things. You have to. And if it winds up being wrong, what I've been told in there, I'll out the person who lied to me in there, okay? But listen, when it comes to USC, the understanding that I have right now is that the administration and the new athletic director over there, Jen Cohen, they've kind of got a track record of making like low-risk type of hires, right? And I've also been told that through some search agency vetting that some of the things that have come back on him is that he carries some baggage in terms of being tough to work with, hard to work for, whatever. We knew that. That's not a surprise. That's not new news. So they're going to have to weigh all that and decide if they're going to pursue it. If they do, and it's a very good chance that happens. The interest is going to be reciprocal there. But understand that just because Eric Musselman might be interested in the USC job for all the reasons we've identified in the past, back home, mom's out there, he's a West Coast guy. We don't have to go through it all again. Just because there could be some interest on his end and on USC's end doesn't mean that it's a done deal. It doesn't mean it's over. Muss is going there. You know how this stuff works, man. There's a lot that goes on, a lot that goes into it. So we'll see, okay? One other thing of note that I was told that I just thought was interesting, while it's not like Stanford or UCLA or Michigan, some of the schools that have a hell of a time getting transfers admitted, especially Michigan, man. You think about that. Imagine what could have been for Michigan this year, right? Like they had Terrence Shannon committed, couldn't get him in for whatever reason with the enrollment admission stuff there. He goes to Illinois. We saw how good of a player he was the past couple of years. Had Caleb Love committed. Had some problems there with the admissions process. He winds up going to Arizona. He's the Pac-12 Player of the Year. They could have both of them on the same team this past year, but it didn't work out for him. At any rate, I kind of get off track there. But USC can be a tough place to get upperclassmen in as transfers. Somebody fairly connected with that program told me that academically, it's a school that wants you to complete a majority of your coursework at USC if they're going to give you a degree from USC, right? And that's not always the case in some places. Like you see guys who will be, 3 years in at one place and they transfer to a school and you get, 33% of your credits or whatever from there and you get a degree from them. They kind of prefer that to be the other way around. So you can still get transfers in. It's harder to get those upperclassmen, maybe easier to get the guys who are transferring after their freshman year grad transfers, whatever. But when you're a guy who kind of makes his bread off of the portal and recruiting out of the transfer market, yeah, it can be a situation where you might have to consider some of that. So a few things there. Not sure about their NIL situation, although I have a feeling that it's going to improve, or that they would have plenty of resources moving from the Pac-12. RIP. It was a fun conference. It's going to be weird without the Pac-12, right? Some of those schools are in the Big Ten now, USC included. Some of them are going to the Big 12. You got a couple that are going to the ACC, which doesn't make any sense at all. And then you got poor Oregon State and Washington State, who are, kind of forced to drop down to the mid-major ranks there. But as I understand it, especially from a financial standpoint, they're going to have a lot of resources there at USC. It's going to be a weird deal, though, for them in terms of travel and everything else that goes on. Like, they're going to be having a midweek conference game at Rutgers or something, I guess could be the case. So that's a little interesting, right? So there's a lot of things to consider there. I don't know what the money is going to look like in terms of what they're going to be hiring for that job. Not really sure about all that stuff yet, but there's a lot of other names that are going to be involved that are going to be thrown out there. I've heard TCU's Jamie Dixon. I've heard Buzz Williams at Texas A&M. I've heard his name come up with a couple other jobs. Maybe he's trying to get a raise or something. I don't know. BYU's Mark Pope, a big name there. Brian Dutcher at San Diego State. Nico Medved, who's one of the best mid-major coaches in the country, over at Colorado State. Even Jason Hart, the G League Ignite guy, again, RIP. To G League Ignite there. So a lot going on there. As I understand it, the anticipation is that this is going to be a quick hiring process, or they would like it to be a quick hiring process at USC. So we got our eyes on it, and we'll keep you posted if anything, comes up or as needed as things continue to evolve here. But I don't know what else to say about it. We'll see what happens. They're going to have their list of candidates. Musselman's probably going to be one of them. Or what I heard over the weekend, and hopefully that's the case. They're certainly recruiting, like they're trying to rebuild that roster at Arkansas, and we're going to talk about all that. Several updates actually from the weekend on the recruiting front, and a number of guys it really feels like Arkansas is maybe close to closing in on here. We're going to dive into that, but first I do want to tell you about our friends over at Signature Bank. Listen, we've talked about it a number of times on this show, but Signature, it's a privately held boutique bank that's redefining the banking experience in our region. They blend the warmth and familiarity of a community bank with the sophistication of a commercial bank and the expertise of private banking to deliver unmatched levels of service, kind of the best of both worlds there. What I like about them the most is I think they're just right sized, Not too big, not too small, right in the middle. Refreshing change from kind of that big, impersonal bank. Some of those places out there, those branches, you don't feel like they care about you, right? You're just another number, right? And you don't get that feel at Signature Bank. They're meeting you where you are and growing a relationship from there. They're small enough to be on a first-name basis with you, which I appreciate, which I certainly appreciate. But they're also big enough to have sophisticated services and competitive products, right? This is it's a well-running, well-oiled machine over there. So make sure you get over to one of the Arkansas branches and check them out, or you can hop over to the website www.signature.bank to learn more about those guys. We appreciate everything that they do. Let's get into some recruiting stuff, some updates, and see what's going on here. What do we got? First of all, no visitors over the weekend for the Hoop Hogs. I remember on Friday's show when we went live, there wasn't anything scheduled. I said I wouldn't be surprised if that changed. It didn't, which is a little bit interesting. I mean, remember that dead period starts April the 4th. That's Thursday. It lasts for a week until April 11th. In a dead period, you can still recruit, right? You can have phone calls, text messages. You can do these Zoom meetings they've been doing a lot of. You just can't have that in-person stuff. So like the staff can't go out and visit guys, and they can't have visitors come in to campus, official or unofficial. So there's that part of it there. But, I was exchanging messages with a source inside the program who said they've really, honestly, revamped the way that they attack the portal. They've completely overhauled it this year. Feel like they got burned in some cases last year going throughout this process. And so basically, for those of you who, really wanted to see Muss and the staff be more patient during portal season, you're getting your wish right now. I mean, they're still aggressive. Don't get me wrong. In terms of reaching out and making contacts, I think they're shoot 75 or more, and that's just what we know about right now. So they're still all over it from that standpoint. But a premium has been placed on prioritizing only high character guys who pass that background check of being coachable and team oriented. I think the last part of that statement should tell you all you need to know about last season's team, at least from their standpoint. So again, like I said, the staff conducted several Zooms over the course of the weekend, one of which was with George Mason Ford Keyshawn Hall, who we've talked about quite a bit on this program here recently. 6'7", 230 pounds. He's kind of in that Justin Smith build. He's got a little bit of Justin Smith to his game, but maybe a little bit of Stanley Amude to him as well, the way he can kind of operate from the elbow, knock down the mid-range. He can put it on the floor. And he's really developed his three-point shot, knocked down over 43s this past season. He's a player now. I mean, averaged 16.6 points, 8.1 rebounds in the A10. He is a guy, interestingly enough, who was very heavy and trimmed down and got himself in shape and really started to ball, right? Does that sound familiar to anybody? Did you know that Mason Jones used to be overweight? And then he got skinny and he became a really good basketball player. Sounds like he's right up the Arkansas alley there, right? But no, in all seriousness, I read a really interesting story about him where he essentially, I wouldn't say he quit basketball, but he was really trying to become like a professional Fortnite player. Like he was a gamer. And so he was snacking and drinking Monsters and sodas and everything and put on a bunch of weight. And then got serious about basketball again and lost a bunch of weight. And he looks great. I mean, he's been posting workout videos on Instagram and social media, and he looks good. Looks like he's in good shape. What I'll say about him, Arkansas is in prime position with Hall, but they're still doing some homework, little background check on him, right? I mean, we're talking about a guy here who would be going, it'd be his third school in 3 years. He started his career at UNLV, then George Mason, then wherever his next stop is going to be. But he bounced around a little bit in high school as well. Actually, his senior year of high school was Bay Falls junior year at Denver Prep, and those two guys played together there, which is a little bit interesting. The connections that you can find when you go back to somebody's high school days, right? And just because somebody's bounced around, that doesn't have to mean anything at all, right? Like it doesn't make you a bad seed or anything like that, but it kind of raises up an antenna, and you want to go back and do your due diligence and make sure, there's no correlations or anything to be worried about there. The reports I've received on him from people who are familiar with his time at George Mason's, that it's been positive. But credit to the staff for doing its due diligence and checking around. And I feel like if the all clear is given, I wouldn't be surprised to see a guy like Keyshawn Hall in a Razorback uniform next season. So we'll see what kind of happens there. Another new name that's emerged and one that Arkansas is in really solid position with, that we heard about late last week, and it came to light on Sunday. Tre'Von Spillers out of Appalachian State. I really, really, really like this dude. I think he'd be a great fit. He released his Final Four. It was Arkansas, LSU, Wake Forest, and UAB. I'm telling you right now, this dude would be a fan favorite in Fayetteville if Arkansas is able to close the deal here. He's 6'7", 205. He looks like a little bit taller, broader version of Adriel Bailey. But he brings the toughness and the physicality of like a Kamani Johnson. So that's why I say he'd be a fan favorite for the people who watch the Razorbacks, because you see a lot of those different traits in him. This guy's a first-team All-Sun Belt player, 12.8 points per game, 8.9 rebounds, so he nearly averaged a double-double. And again, like he's 6'7", 205, 210, 1.3 blocks per game, challenges everything around the rim, does all of his damage around the rim. He only attempted 1 3-pointer all season, so he understands what his strengths are. Pretty decent free throw shooter. He dunked a basketball 56 times. So he's an above-the-rim type of guy. A dozen double-doubles on the year. He's switchable. He can guard multiple positions, and he's a dog. Like, you watch him play, and he's kind of got that grit and toughness and mean streak that, maybe some of the guys on last year's roster didn't have. So I think he'd be a welcome addition. He's working on setting up some visits, and Arkansas was the number one visit destination that he mentioned. And I think it's got to be a situation like Josh Cohen. You get him on campus and lock him down, because I think he could be a really good fit for what Arkansas has got going on. Going back to that toughness a little bit, he's just a guy who embraces the grind and the hard work aspect of things. Like he was a junior college All-American led the country in blocks. 6'7", he averaged 4.9 blocks per game in junior college at Moberly, and he was third in the country in rebounds, 11 rebounds per game. So good player. And if you think about, like big picture with the front court, like Josh Cohen is a dude who, like, he's super crafty, really good passer, and somebody who you can give touches to on the block, and he can go to work and score it for you. Spillers is a guy I feel like who could be a really good complement for what Cohen brings to the table, because he plays above the rim, he runs the floor, he thrives in transition, challenges shots at the rim, and he's an absolute dog. He's a monster on the glass. A good complement there. And then you add yourself, a meatball. We're going to talk about that in a minute. And then you're kind of in business in the front court. So definitely one to keep an eye on. I think Arkansas is in a good spot there. And buddy, you'd like to have that one. Appalachian State was good too. They were 27-7 in the same league there as JMU, James Madison, who obviously won a game in the NCAA tournament. Had it not been for those guys being a buzzsaw, App State probably would have been an NCAA tournament team as well. They beat Auburn early in the year, so not too shabby. Another new name to the board over the course of the weekend, UC San Diego forward Francis McCory. He's teammates with our man Bryce Pope that we've talked about quite a bit. 6'7", 220. He's, we talk about the prototype. That's kind of your guy. Can play the 3 or the 4. Modest numbers. 11.3 points, 5.5 boards. Not too shabby. 37.2% three-point shooter for his career on pretty good volume there. He dropped a list of schools that were recruiting him most aggressively, and some really good mid-major programs. Nevada was one that I remember in there, but Arkansas was the one that really stood out from that group. I think he could be a guy that could be a really good depth piece for you if you're able to pull that one. Who else here? One earlier on Monday. If there's one player who can compete with JP Pegues and Scotty's Hart, and that's why I'm not going to talk about him too much today, because I want Scotty to have the floor on it, but it's South Carolina's Meechie Johnson. And he put out there today that the 4 schools that he's really been hearing from since he hit the portal, Texas A&M, Kentucky, Ohio State, and Arkansas. And so you love to hear that. He's a really good player. And we, when Scotty and I were down in Nashville for the SEC tournament, that first day we were there when Arkansas was getting ready to play Vanderbilt, South Carolina obviously had the bye. We knew if Arkansas won that they would play him the next day. So we went to their practice and got a chance to talk to Meechie Johnson afterwards. And it was a really good conversation. He's a great interview, funny kid. I think Arkansas fans would really enjoy him. He's obviously a really good player. Probably going to be difficult to pry him away from Ohio State based on some of the early returns, which would be a Jimmy Witt scenario, right? Because he started his career at Ohio State, transferred out to South Carolina for a couple years, and then he'd be going back. So we'll see what happens there. But I did think it was interesting that Arkansas was included on that group that was after him hard. He would be a hell of an addition to the backcourt for sure. Unfortunately, some guys had to come off the board. RIP to some of the friends of the big board. Zeke Mayo, South Dakota State, he is not committed anywhere, but he kind of released his 4 schools that he's focused on, Kansas being one on that list, and Arkansas was not one of those. One of the better point guards out there. We're going to talk about that point guard position quite a bit here in a few minutes. Dante Maddox out of Toledo, another one of those prototype guys. He dropped his finalists. Arkansas wasn't in there. Talon Peter, the D2 phenomenon, right, out of Arkansas Tech. He went on a visit to Liberty and committed those guys on the spot. So a few guys who came off the board there. One thing that I wanted to get into, like I'm kind of like everybody else, right? Like I spent the weekend watching some pretty good college basketball down to the Final Four: UConn, Purdue, NC State, and Alabama. Yeah, real cool. But watching those teams over the weekend, it was really interesting to me just to kind of see how each of them are built stylistically and just in terms of their roster makeup. Like stylistically, I think this Final Four, it kind of shows us there's more than one way to skin a cat, right? Like some teams are built for March, and other teams just kind of find a way to catch fire and get the right matchups. But, you take a look around at it, like UConn, I think is kind of that cookie cutter, like the prototype type of roster that you're looking for, They've got great guard play. They've got an imposing big man. They've got plenty of shooters all around them. Like they're deep. They're complete. Like if you can put that together, great. But that's not easy to do. Purdue, they're built around a dominant post player in Zach Edey. They got good complementary pieces around him. They got some shooters to space the floor so he can get touches. Cool. Alabama's got that real unique philosophy going, right, of chucking 43 threes a game, and they're kind of doing the perimeter or paint thing and nothing in between. It works for them. NC State, we all love DJ Burns, don't we? I do. The dude's awesome. But they've been what they've really been doing is locking opponents up. I think, what is it? Every NCAA tournament game they've played, they've held their opponent under 40% from the field. You D up, you get stops, and you get just enough offense, and you win games and survive in advance. So there's different ways that you can go about getting to a Final Four. Like it's not one style of play that gets you there. Okay, but they all have some things in common in terms of the pieces that they have. You can play differently, but have similar pieces, right? Every one of those teams has a legit weapon in the front court. Purdue has Zach Edey. He's the best player in the country. 2-time National Player of the Year, about to be. UConn has Donovan Clingan. I really want to see that matchup, Clingan versus Edey in the championship game. But Clingan, he's 7'2", he's mobile. He really does a lot for them. He was incredible in that game against Illinois over the weekend. NC State has DJ Burns, our guy. My large adult son, DJ Burns. Absolutely love him. And Alabama's a little bit different, but they've got Grant Nelson, who challenges you in different ways. Like, he draws your fives out on the perimeter, makes you guard him. He's athletic. He's got guard skills. He can space the floor, and he can play above the rim and block shots. They don't always play him at the 5. They got guys like Nick Pringle, but even Jaron Stevenson, the freshman. He's 6'11", super long, can challenge at the rim, but he's also a floor spacer, but that fits their style. But they've all got big men who are legitimate weapons, right? They're all solid at point guard, too. Purdue's got Braden Smith. He's having a great year. UConn has Tristan Newton, who's developed into one of the better guards in the country. NC State has DJ Horn. Got bad news for you. He should have been a Hog. They had a great chance at getting DJ Horn when he transferred out of Arizona State. Didn't work out, whatever. And then Alabama obviously has Mark Sears, he's been incredible all season. They've all got snipers too, man. Purdue's got Braden Smith and Fletcher Lawyer and Lance Jones, who can knock down threes. UConn's got Cam Spencer and Alex Caravan. Bama's got a team full of shooters. It's their whole roster outside of Nick Pringle, right? And then NC State, they've got DJ Horn and Jaden Taylor, who, by the way, was a silent commit to Arkansas when he transferred out of Butler last year. Visited Arkansas, thought they were going to get him. They wound up being Caleb Battle and stuff instead. But Jaden Taylor's had a really good season for him. He's averaging double figures. He's knocked down 60-some-odd threes and is a starter on a Final Four team. So there you go. I can't get over DJ Burns, though, man. He's so much fun. The big fella can go. He's a great passer, skilled in there. And the cool thing is, he hasn't snuck up on a bunch of people. He had a pretty good season. He averaged 12.5 points per game, rebounds. He's a really good assist man. Great passer at his size, but he's really taken off in the NCAA tournament. He absolutely destroyed Duke. Was really good in the game before that. Who'd they play the other day before that? I don't remember. Doesn't matter. They beat Duke, which is awesome, by the way, because you think about that triangle area in Carolina. It's like UNC and Duke, and people always forget about NC State, but here they are, the last team standing. It's pretty cool. I don't want to be a prisoner of the moment, but I love the idea of Arkansas having a guy like that. I was looking around the portal earlier today, who are the meatballs that Arkansas could get? Dane Danger out of Illinois, if you guys remember him from the tournament last year. Just super big-bodied, physical dude. He hit the portal earlier today. Big Eddie Lampkin, who he's like an NCAA tournament legend, man. He had some great games at TCU in some tournament runs, and he transferred last year. Arkansas recruited him a bit. He wound up at Colorado. That was a really good player for them. 6'11", 260, 270, big boy. Terrace Reed out of Michigan. We talked about him some too. I would just love to have one of those absolute boulders on the interior. But it would have to be a change of pace for a guy like Muss, right? That's not really his thing. He's more of the Mikhail Brown-Jones, Sam Alexis, Malik Dia mold kind of guys who bring maybe a little bit more versatility, but you never know. They've certainly been reaching out to a lot of those guys, so maybe they wind up getting one like that. I think it would be a lot of fun. We'll see what happens. Is Arkansas going to get a couple snipers? Some shooters? I hope so. The thing about it is, like, again, for Muss and what he covets, especially this offseason, like they're going to go back to defense first kind of deal. You got to be able to defend. So you're thinking about 3-and-D type of guys, and that, I mean, there's a reason why I'm so high on a dude like Darlin Stone-DeBar out of Hofstra. I talk about him every time we get on this show. When you're a dude who can shoot 40% on high volume threes and you're 6'8" and athletic and switchable, it doesn't get much better than that in terms of a fit at a place like Arkansas under Muss. So they're still working on getting him in for a visit. I think they're in a pretty good spot there with him early. We'll see what happens, but they're recruiting a bunch of guys who can shoot, right? And we've seen this in the past, like guys who shoot, 35-ish% and they make, 40 to 50 per year. And that's good. Like you can get those guys and they can really help you. They have to be respected. And they're versatile and they can do other things. But I'm talking about a straight sniper, like somebody is just a lethal threat. Like I think about like Colby Rogers out of Wichita State, right? That is a sniper. 99 made threes, over 40%. I know they don't grow those guys on trees, but like that's what I would love to see. So we're going to do some more deep dives into all that stuff. But what I really wanted to spend the last segment of the show today talking about is Arkansas's options at the lead guard spot, the point guard spot, just because I feel like it's so crucial to the process. Like they're going to have so many new faces. You have to have that table setter and somebody to get the team within the flow of the offense, get guys to their spots, create shots, and be a playmaker. They suffered without really having that last year. They had some guys who played the role and did okay, but you really got to have a table setter and a playmaker. There's different ways to go around it or go about it, rather, but it's interesting looking at some of the different options here and some of the guys that have fallen off the board. We talked about Zeke Mayo out of South Dakota State. Like I think he would have been a great fit. Cut to that top 4 already, and Arkansas ain't on it. Jacoby Gillespie out of Belmont was another one who I thought would have been a good one. He's already committed to Maryland, which I heard his NIL deal was upwards of $750,000, which is a lot of money if that's true. But then looking at the rest of the available point guards, like Doug McDaniel out of Michigan, exciting player, really good scorer. It's not a fit. It's not a fit at Arkansas, and I think it's why we haven't heard much at all in terms of traction there. J.P. Pegues, much to the dismay of my man Scotty. Sorry, brother, if you're listening. South Carolina and Auburn are all over him. He visited South Carolina over the weekend. I think he visits Auburn tomorrow. I worry about him popping pretty quickly to one of those places. He is the kind of the prototypical Bruce Pearl kind of guard, a little bit undersized, but can really score it, and is a dynamic player. I would hate to have to play against that dude twice next year, but we'll see what happens. I mean, if they survive that visit, maybe you get an opportunity to get in there, but sounds like a lot of buzz is elsewhere in the SEC early on. Tony Perkins out of Iowa, another guy that we talked about, a little bit different, right? Like he's 6'4", 215, stocky, strong, physical guard. I know that the staff likes him a lot. We'll see what happens there. Like Indiana was really an early favorite out of the gates, and maybe they still are. He just visited Mizzou over the weekend. Mizzou's trying to get some dudes. We'll see what happens. There are other guys out there, but I feel like Arkansas's point guard, their lead guard, it's got to be a dude this year. A dude, right? Personally, I would love to see Arkansas take a swing at Arizona State transfer Frankie Collins. I'm a big Frankie Collins guy. And if you've been listening to the pod since we started here, he was one of the early additions to the board for us. He's since entered the portal. And I really like his game. I think he'd be a nice fit. 13.8 points. Well, first of all, let me backtrack a little bit. Point guards who transfer out of Arizona State tend to lead Final Four teams at their next stop. Like we talked about DJ Horn. He leaves Arizona State, goes to NC State. Here they are in the Final Four. He's their leading scorer. And even though we love DJ Burns, he's probably their best player. And for the life of me, I cannot remember his name off the top right now, but the kid that transferred out of Arizona State to Kansas a couple years ago, gets out of there. They make the run. He was a big piece of that team that went to the Final Four. I guess that was the national championship team. Is Frankie Collins going to be that dude? I don't know, but there's a pattern there, right? But 13.8 points, 4.4 rebounds. So you've got a 6'1" guard who likes to get on the glass, which we know how Muss talks about all the time. Need rebounding from the guards. He loves that. He covets it. 3.2 assists. That's not bad. It was a little bit higher for him last year. He was up over 4 assists per game last year. The turnovers this season a little bit higher than I'd like to see him. He's about 2.5 this year, but he's been sub 2 turnovers per game majority of his career. This is not a dude he's not a burner from 3, but he's 31 to 34%. So, on pretty good volume there. So it's enough to keep defenders from going under ball screens all the time and getting away with it. Right, so they have to respect you from there. But what I really like about him is it's 2.6 steals per game. He ranks inside the top 10 in the country in steals per game. So you got a guy there who can score it a little bit. He can set the table for others. He's good in transition, can knock down the three just enough, and he's disruptive on the ball defensively. Cool, man. Sign me up. Looking at the options right now, I would be all over this dude. There's some other guys out there, though. A couple from Oklahoma, actually, to consider. Javion McCullum, if you guys remember him from the game against Arkansas and Tulsa, he was a really tough cover for the Razorbacks. He's more of a combo guard, probably, but he's got it in his hands a lot. So maybe think more JD Notae-ish, but not as scoring minded. Like he's a little bit more of a willing passer than JD was at that spot. Little undersized at 6'2", 160, but man, he's a bucket. He's a really nice playmaker. An elite free throw shooter. I think he only missed 5 free throws the entire season, so that's good. Over 100 assists the past 2 years. Arkansas was in on him for a while last year in the portal. When he initially hit, he was one of those guys that was kind of hinted at me as maybe a name to watch. Winds up going to Oklahoma. But certainly one to keep an eye on. I think he was, I shouldn't say that. If he wasn't their leading scorer this year, he was their second leading scorer. But a guy with a lot of Big 12 experience, and he's right down the road. So we'll see if they kick the tires on that one. Milos Uzan is another guy over there at Oklahoma who's really intriguing to me, honestly. I heard a little bit of, I think, Texas Tech buzz about him. But we'll see. I noticed, for whatever it's worth, like he follows several guys on Instagram, Bayfall and Anthony Black and some different dudes. So I don't know. But if you guys remember him, he's 6'4", lead guard. He's really a massive, needs a change of scenery candidate. It was interesting because he came on really strong late as a freshman last year. And he entered this season on a bunch of NBA mock draft radars. He was okay, but not great. I'm not sure the mesh between him and McCollum was great in that backcourt. He averaged 9 points per game, 4.4 rebounds. So again, another guard that'll get on the glass for you. He shot sub 30% from 3 this year, but he was better than 40% on pretty similar volume as a true freshman. So it's there. A lot of Big 12 experience. I think he's a guy who could really take off with the right system and the right fit. So maybe one to keep an eye on. Kylan Boswell is another interesting name that hit the portal earlier today on Monday. Full-time starter for Arizona, team that made the Sweet 16. He shot it over 38% from 3 in his first 2 seasons of college basketball, 2-to-1 assist-to-turnover ratio. So a lot of things to like there. Physical guard. He's a Champaign, Illinois native, though, so it just automatically makes you think maybe you got to watch out for the Fighting Illini there. I don't know. So, just some different things to consider there. It's interesting that the point guard position hasn't developed in the portal as much as maybe I thought it would. And Arkansas is in on a lot of guards. I mean, like a guy like Tyron Lawrence out of Vanderbilt, he could run the point. Absolutely. Is he a point guard, though? Not really. I think he's probably best served as a secondary ball handler and playmaker who can go score it and have that on his mind and get you buckets. Deshane Montgomery out of Mount St. Mary's, kind of in the same mold. He's going to have the ball in his hands, but he's a creator. He's a scorer, right? So I think there's a differentiation to be made there with some of those guys. What else happened in the portal? There was something else that I wanted to. Oh, it's good because behind me, usually you see it through Scotty's camera, but the big board is in front of me here. Anderson Garcia out of Texas A&M. So if anybody that might follow me on Twitter, they probably got a kick out of this. But it was verbal commits who I think that they're pretty good about being accurate, but they put out that Anderson Garcia was hitting the portal. This is a dude from Texas A&M he's 6'7", but he just gobbles up rebounds. He might have been the best offensive rebounder in the country or one of them. Average more boards than points, that kind of guy. And we really grew to appreciate him. He's also the dude who hit the buzzer beater or the game tying three as time expired for A&M against Houston to send that game into overtime, which is pretty cool. But it came out that he was going in the portal, so immediately I tagged Scotty on Twitter, and I was like, "Oh, friend of the big board, this is great." And then it was like 20 minutes later, he tweeted out from his personal account and was like, "Not only am I not in the portal, I won't be in the portal. Like, I'm an Aggie until the end." And so I was like, "Dang, I guess it's not going to happen then." But he would have been a lot of fun to have. So, at any rate, I think that just about does it. I'm kind of impressed, man. Like I talked for almost 40 minutes here by myself. It kind of takes me back to my previous stop when I was doing a different show and I was flying solo. And I would usually try to get to 40, 45 minutes and then get to some comments and questions. I should have gone live. I didn't think about that. I should have gone live today. But just as a tease, we are going to start doing that more. We did it when Cohen committed, and that was a lot of fun. We really appreciated all the interaction in there and some of the questions and the stuff that was put out there. So I think at least a couple times a week, Scotty and I are going to try to do that. And we'll obviously go live when there are commitments and breaking news of this basketball program, and it's just getting started. So a lot to come there, but really appreciate you guys as always for tuning in. Just as a reminder, again, like if you fast forwarded through the first 30 seconds of the show, Scotty's okay. He'll be back tomorrow, right? Just handling some dad stuff today, and it'll be cool to get him back in here, and we'll keep this thing rolling. But for Scotty Bordelon, until he returns, it's been Curtis Wilkerson over at Natty State Sports, the Pod at the Palace, Pod at the Portal, whatever. Make sure you hop over to our YouTube page, subscribe. Make sure you hop over to whatever podcast platform you use, Apple, Spotify, whatever. Subscribe, get locked in with us. We appreciate you. We're going to keep doing these things daily. As long as there's news, we're going to talk about it. We will catch you guys on Tuesday.